Millionaire doctor hears a poor mother beg, "Save my daughter." His reaction shocks everyone. Late autumn nights in Chicago always carry a biting cold. But that night, a single mother was about to walk into a hospital and discover that the man she had mourned for 5 years was still alive. That night was no different for Emily Carter. After 10 continuous hours bent over scrubbing floors, changing bed sheets, and collecting trash at a downtown hotel, she left her shift with heavy legs and hands roughened by cleaning chemicals. Emily pulled her thin coat collar higher and hurried along the damp sidewalk, her mind fixed on a single thought: getting home as quickly as possible to hold her daughter in her arms. Lily, her 4-year-old little girl, was the only reason Emily could get up every morning and endure this harsh life. Their small apartment was on the 3rd floor of an aging building on Chicago's South Side. Emily had barely set down her bag when she heard a faint groan coming from the bedroom. Her heart tightened. She rushed inside and froze when she touched her daughter's forehead. Burning hot. Lily was curled beneath the blanket, her face flushed, her pale lips trembling. She was vomiting uncontrollably, tears streaming down her tiny cheeks. "Mom, it hurts so much," Lily whispered weakly. Panic seized Emily. She searched for the thermometer, her hands shaking so badly she had to try twice before she could take her daughter's temperature. The number that appeared made her blood run cold. High fever, far too high. There was no time to hesitate. Emily wrapped her child in the thickest blanket she owned, grabbed her purse and phone, and rushed outside. She hailed an old taxi, clutching Lily tightly to her chest, whispering reassurances she herself was no longer sure she believed. "It's okay. I'm here. I promise." Streetlights streaked past the taxi windows like blurred trails of light. Emily could not remember how many times she prayed during that short ride. She only knew that fear was crushing her chest, the familiar fear of a single mother who had no one to lean on. Just before midnight, they arrived at Chicago General Hospital. The pediatric emergency room glowed under harsh white lights, heavy with the sharp scent of disinfectant. Emily sat on a cold plastic chair, Lily slumped in her arms, her breathing faint and shallow. The clock on the wall crawled forward, second by merciless second. Emily's heart raced. The pediatric ER doors swung open. A nurse called out loudly, "Lily Carter?" Emily startled and stood quickly, her legs stiff from sitting too long. She tightened her hold on Lily and followed the nurse down a long, blindingly white corridor, fluorescent lights pouring onto the icy floor. The sound of shoes echoed steadily, each step carrying her closer to something she could not yet name. The sudden scent of antiseptic made Emily's stomach twist. She had smelled it before, long ago. The nurse stopped in front of an exam room, opened the door, and said gently, "The doctor will be in shortly." Emily stepped inside and laid Lily on the exam bed. She lowered her head, softly stroking her daughter's hair, trying to steady her breathing. She did not look up. She did not dare to. Footsteps sounded behind her. Then came a calm, warm voice, frighteningly familiar in its steadiness. "Good evening. I'm Dr. Michael Reed." The world stopped turning. Emily stood frozen in the small room. The air seemed to drain from her lungs. Her heart pounded painfully, as if it might break through her chest. No, this couldn't be happening. She slowly turned around. The man standing before her was slightly taller than she was, wearing a white lab coat with a stethoscope draped around his neck. That face, though faint lines had formed at the corners of his eyes, though his gaze was calmer and more distant, was unmistakable. Michael Reed. The man Emily had loved with her entire life. The man she had mourned for 5 long years. The man she believed was dead. Emily could no longer hear anything. A ringing filled her ears, all surrounding sounds blurred as if she were sinking deep underwater. Michael looked at her, hesitating slightly. "Ma'am?" he asked, professional yet tinged with concern. Are you all right? Would you like to sit down?" Emily opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Tears spilled before she could stop them. Her knees weakened, nearly giving way. He didn't recognize her. Michael stepped closer and pulled out a chair for Emily. His hand accidentally brushed her arm. It lasted only a brief moment, but both of them froze. Michael frowned. A strange sensation ran down his spine, warm, familiar, yet inexplicable. His heart skipped a beat. "Have we met before?" he blurted out, his gray-blue eyes searching Emily's tear-streaked face. Emily immediately turned away, clutching Lily tighter. "No," she whispered, her voice breaking. "No, we've never met." Michael hesitated for a few seconds, as if he wanted to say more, but then his gaze shifted to the little girl on the bed. Lily let out a faint groan. Michael knelt to her eye level, his voice softening instantly. "Hello, little princess," he said gently, smiling. "I'm the doctor." "What's your name?" "Lily?" the child whispered. Michael repeated the name, and for reasons he could not explain, his heart suddenly tightened. He looked up, his eyes unconsciously settling on Lily's blue eyes, the same eyes he saw every morning in the mirror, without knowing they belonged to his child. And somewhere in Michael's chest, a nameless sense of loss began to form, slow and aching, as though he had forgotten something incredibly important. A very long time ago. Michael began examining Lily with the absolute focus of a seasoned physician. He took her temperature, checked her throat, and listened to her breathing through the cold stethoscope. His hands moved with practiced ease, gentle and precise, carrying a natural patience that made any child feel safe. Emily stood beside them, her hands tightly clasped, her nails pressing deep into her palms. She followed his every movement, the way he tilted his head while listening to Lily's heartbeat, the way he smiled reassuringly when the little girl winced in discomfort. Everything was painfully familiar. This was the man who had once placed his hand on her belly, whispering to their unborn child that he would protect them both for the rest of his life. The man who had once said that family was the most important thing to him. Now he stood right in front of her, yet his eyes looked at her as though she were a stranger. "She has a high fever and signs of a viral respiratory infection," Michael said calmly. "It's not serious, but she needs to be closely monitored over the next 24 to 48 hours. Emily nodded, trying to focus on his words, even though her heart was still racing. "Don't worry," he continued. "I'll prescribe fever reducers and anti-nausea medication. If her condition worsens, bring her back immediately." He turned to Lily and smiled gently. "You did very well, little princess." Lily managed a weak smile, her blue eyes shining as she looked at him with complete trust. In that moment, a strange sensation rose again in Michael's chest, warm yet edged with a vague ache, as if his heart had just recognized something his mind could not comprehend. He stood, turned to the computer to enter the chart, then printed the prescription. When he handed the paper to Emily, his gaze lingered on her face longer than necessary. "Forgive me if this sounds strange," he said slowly. "But are you certain we've never met before?" Emily's heart tightened. For a fleeting moment, she wanted to say everything, to cry out that he was the man she loved, that Lily was his daughter, that she had lived in misery believing he was dead. But she couldn't. Not here. Not now. "No," Emily replied, her voice low and hoarse. "Perhaps I just resemble someone you once knew." Michael nodded, but doubt still clouded his eyes. He reached into his coat pocket, took out a business card, hesitated for a second, then handed it to her. "This is my direct number," he said. "If Lily shows any unusual symptoms, you can call me any time, day or night." When their fingers brushed, both of them froze. A fleeting, nameless emotion flickered in Michael's eyes. Emily quickly withdrew her hand, clutching Lily and leaving the exam room as if fleeing. She did not dare look back, did not dare see whether he was watching her. Behind her, Michael remained standing in the empty exam room, watching the mother and child disappear down the corridor. Emily left the hospital in a daze. She could barely remember when she had called a taxi, nor how she had made it back to the apartment. Only when she laid Lily down on the bed, tucked her in carefully, and heard her breathing gradually steady, did she finally allow herself to collapse. She sank onto the living room floor, her back against the worn sofa, both hands clutching her head. Her entire body trembled as if she had just emerged from a nightmare, or worse, as if she had stepped straight into one. Michael was alive. For 5 years, Emily had lived like a widow. She had cried herself empty for a man she believed no longer existed in this world. She had learned to bury her pain, learned to be strong for Lily, learned to survive without hope. And now, he had appeared, in flesh and blood, right before her eyes. The apartment door opened. Sarah, Emily's cousin, stepped inside. The moment she saw Emily's pale face, she panicked. "Emily, how is Lily?" Sarah asked, setting down her bag. Emily looked up, her eyes red and swollen, her voice trembling. I saw him." Sarah froze. "Who?" "Michael," Emily whispered. "He's alive." No further explanation was needed. Sarah sat down beside her, taking Emily's hand as the last of her tears finally spilled uncontrollably. Emily told her everything, every detail, from the moment Lily's fever spiked to the instant the ER door opened and Michael stood there wearing a doctor's coat, looking at her like a stranger. Then old memories came flooding back, sharp and merciless. 5 years earlier, Emily had been a young nursing student. Michael was a medical resident, intelligent, devoted, and loving her with a devotion that made her believe they would spend their lives together. The accident happened on a rainy night. Michael was rushed to the hospital in critical condition. 3 days later, Margaret Reed, his mother, appeared. She stood before Emily, cold and controlled, her eyes devoid of compassion. She said Michael had not survived his complications, that he had died during the night, that his body had been handled internally for medical reasons. And as if that were not cruel enough, she leaned closer and whispered words Emily would never forget. "You do not belong in my son's world. Neither does the child in your womb. If you continue to cling to the Reed name, I will destroy you." Emily had been too young, too alone, and too frightened to resist. She believed the woman, believed that the man she loved was dead, believed that she was completely alone in the world. She dropped out of school, left the city, carried a growing belly and a shattered heart with her. Sarah clenched her hands after hearing it all. "She deceived you," she said, her voice shaking with rage. "She stole your entire life." Emily nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I lived 5 years as if he were gone. I buried him in my heart. And now he's alive, Sarah. But he doesn't remember me. He doesn't remember Lily." Sarah pulled her into a tight embrace. "But have you found out why he didn't recognize you?" Emily closed her eyes. Inside her chest, the old pain that had just been unearthed cut deeper and sharper than ever before. The past had not merely been buried, it had been stolen, cruelly. The next 2 days passed as slowly as torture. Emily barely took her eyes off Lily. She checked her daughter's temperature every few hours, gave her medicine on time, and sat by the bed listening to every small breath. Fortunately, the fever gradually subsided. Lily began to eat a little porridge, her cheeks less flushed, her eyes regaining their light. But Emily's mind did not improve at all. Michael Reed. He was still alive, but he had no memory of her at all. The business card lay on the small kitchen table like an object of crushing weight. Emily picked it up and put it down more times than she could count. She told herself everything should end there, that it was best to let the past sleep. Then the phone rang. Emily, startled, her heart pounding as an unfamiliar number appeared on the screen. "Hello?" she answered cautiously. "Hello, Ms. Carter," came the familiar deep male voice. "This is Dr. Michael Reed. I'm calling to check on Lily's condition." Emily sank into a chair. "She's doing better," she replied. "Thank you for calling." There was a brief silence on the other end. Then Michael's voice lowered, no longer entirely professional. "I'm sorry if this is inappropriate," he said slowly, "but I can't stop thinking about you and your daughter." Emily closed her eyes. "I don't know why," Michael continued with a sincerity that made her heart ache. "Since you left the exam room, I've had this feeling that I've missed something very important, like there's a hollow space in my chest that I can't name." Emily tightened her grip on the phone. "Perhaps you're just tired," she said, even though she did not believe her own words. "Maybe," Michael exhaled, "but I don't think so." He hesitated briefly, then went on. "I know this is very strange, but would you like to meet me? Just to talk, have a cup of coffee." Emily's heart thundered. Every instinct for self-protection screamed that she should refuse, that she was not strong enough to face the man who had once been her entire world. But another part of her, the part that had never stopped loving him, whispered yes. "All right," she said softly. But only for a little while. Michael seemed to smile through the phone. "I know a quiet cafe in River North. Tomorrow, 5 p.m.? Emily glanced toward the bedroom where Lily slept peacefully. "All right," she repeated. "Tomorrow?" She hung up and set the phone down, her hands trembling. She did not know whether she had just opened a door to the truth or stepped straight into a new kind of pain. The next afternoon, the cafe sat on a quiet street in River North, removed from the usual bustle of Chicago. Emily arrived 15 minutes early and chose a small table near the window where she could see everyone who walked in. Her hands were wrapped tightly around a cup of hot tea, though she barely took a sip. Her heart was pounding so loudly that each beat seemed to echo in her ears. On the way there, she had asked herself dozens of times, "What am I doing?" Meeting the man she had once loved most in the world, when he no longer remembered who she was, felt more like emotional torture than a date. At exactly 5 o'clock, the cafe door opened. Michael walked in. No lab coat, no stethoscope, just a simple shirt and jeans. He looked younger, so much like the Michael of 5 years ago that Emily had to draw a steadying breath to keep herself composed. His eyes swept across the cafe, then stopped when he saw her. A soft smile curved on his lips, the same smile that had melted Emily's heart countless times before. "Thank you for coming," Michael said as he sat down across from her. "Thank you for inviting me, Doctor," Emily replied, keeping her voice as calm as she could. A brief silence settled between them, not the awkward quiet of strangers, but a heavy stillness filled with things left unsaid. Michael was the first to break it. "It's strange," he said, glancing around the cafe. "I have a very strong feeling that I've been here before, even though my mind tells me that's impossible." Emily's chest tightened. This place had once been their cafe, where they went after classes and long shifts, where Michael had held her hand for the first time, where he had proposed with a simple ring bought from his very first paycheck. "Perhaps you've been here before," Emily said softly. Michael leaned forward, his gaze intent. "Emily," he said, using her name for the first time, "I need you to be honest with me. We knew each other before, didn't we?" The moment had finally come. Emily took a deep breath, feeling as if her chest might split open. "Yes," she said, her voice trembling yet firm. "We knew each other 5 years ago." Michael closed his eyes briefly, as if finally confirming what he had long sensed. "Then why don't I remember anything?" he asked quietly. He rubbed his forehead and exhaled heavily. "My mother said the accident changed many things," he murmured. but she never once mentioned you." Emily bit her lip. She knew this moment would change everything. "After the accident," she said, each word cutting into her heart, "your mother told me that you had died." Michael froze. "What?" "She said you didn't survive," Emily whispered. Silence engulfed the cafe table. Michael stared at her, his eyes swirling with shock, anger, and confusion. Then Emily looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. "Michael, I didn't come here to demand anything from you," she said. "But there is a truth you need to know." She drew a shaky breath, feeling as though she stood on the edge of an abyss. "Lily is your daughter." Michael's world collapsed in a long, silent moment. Michael said nothing. For the first few seconds, he simply sat there, motionless, as if his brain had been disconnected from his body. The sounds of the cafe continued around him, the hiss of the espresso machine, the quiet laughter from a nearby table, but everything felt distant, unreal. "My daughter?" he repeated hoarsely. Emily nodded, tears streaming. "Lily is your daughter. She's 4. Michael shot to his feet, the chair scraping loudly behind him. He ran a trembling hand through his hair, breathing hard as if he had been dragged up from deep underwater. "No, that's impossible," he murmured. "I would remember. If I had a child, I couldn't possibly forget." Emily stood as well, but she did not touch him. "You forgot because you lost your memory," she said brokenly, "and because someone deliberately kept you away from us." Michael turned to her, his eyes reddening. "My mother," he said, not as a question, but as a certainty. Emily did not answer. She did not need to. Everything was already clear. Michael took a few steps away, stopping by the cafe window. He needed air. He needed time to breathe. He needed a moment so this new reality would not completely crush him. A child. His daughter. 4 years of her life he had never known existed. Lily's image rose in his mind, her clear blue eyes, the way she had looked at him with innocent trust in the exam room. Those eyes, they were exactly like his. A sharp pain stabbed his chest, so intense that he had to brace himself against the window frame. "I've seen her," he said thickly. "I touched her, and I didn't even know." Emily stepped a little closer. "It's not your fault," she said softly. "You didn't choose the accident. You didn't choose to lose your memory." Michael turned back, his eyes glistening. "But I missed the first 4 years of her life," he said. 4 years I can never get back." He stepped toward Emily and stopped in front of her. "I want to meet her," he said without hesitation. "I need to meet her. Right now, if you'll allow me." Emily's heart trembled. She had feared this moment for 5 years, the moment she would have to place her daughter's fate into the hands of the man who had once vanished from her life. But in Michael's eyes she saw neither doubt nor escape. She saw awakening, responsibility, a father who had just realized he had lost his entire world. "All right," Emily finally said, "but we will take it one step at a time. For Lily." Michael nodded solemnly. "I promise," he said, "I won't disappear again, even if I don't remember the past. I will not abandon the present." In that moment, Emily knew their lives had turned onto an entirely different path, with no way back. That evening, Emily led Michael back to her small apartment. She had asked Sarah to watch Lily throughout the afternoon, but when she opened the door, Lily came running out of the living room, her soft brown hair flying, still clutching her familiar doll in her arms. "Mom!" the little girl cried, throwing her arms around Emily's legs. Michael stood behind her, frozen. This was the first time he was seeing Lily in a place that wasn't a hospital. Not an exam bed, not under cold white lights, just a normal child in a small, warm home. His daughter's home. Emily bent down and lifted Lily into her arms. "Do you remember the doctor from the other day?" she asked gently. Lily tilted her head and studied Michael for a long moment. Her clear blue eyes sparkled with curiosity. Then she nodded. "The doctor made my tummy stop hurting." Michael knelt down to her eye level, his heart pounding so loudly he was afraid Lily might hear it. "Hello, Lily," he said, his voice so gentle it surprised even himself. "I'm very happy to see that you're feeling better." Lily looked at him for a few more seconds, then suddenly smiled. "Mom says you're nice," she said, as if that were reason enough to trust him. Something inside Michael's chest broke open. No explanations were needed. No proof was required. In that brief moment, Lily had opened her heart and welcomed him in naturally, instinctively, as if she had been waiting for this for a very long time. Michael sat on the floor and played with Lily. He built towers from colorful wooden blocks, listened as she talked about her favorite doll, about preschool, about how she wanted to become a doctor, just like you when she grew up. Emily leaned against the kitchen doorway, watching quietly. She saw Michael smile. A real smile, not the polite smile of a doctor. She saw how attentively he listened to Lily. She saw his patience, his gentleness, as if being a father were the most natural thing in the world. One part of her melted. Another part was afraid. Hope always comes with the fear of loss. After nearly 2 hours, Lily began to yawn. Emily carried her to the bedroom and kissed her forehead gently. "Sleep well, my angel." Michael stood outside the doorway, not daring to step in. He was afraid of disturbing that sacred moment. When Emily returned to the living room, they stood facing each other in silence. "Thank you," she finally said, "for being here." Michael shook his head. "No," he said softly. "Thank you for giving me the chance to meet her." He glanced toward Lily's bedroom, emotion filling his eyes. "I don't remember the past," he said, "but I want to build the present, if you'll allow me." Emily drew a deep breath. For the first time in 5 years, she allowed herself to believe, perhaps, just perhaps, that their lives had not ended in pain. The call came on a rainy afternoon. Michael had just left Emily's apartment when his phone vibrated. He glanced at the screen, his jaw tightening at the familiar name. Margaret Reed. He hesitated for a few seconds, then answered. "Michael?" Her voice came through cold and direct. "I've heard that you've started seeing her again." His heart sank. "Are you monitoring me?" he asked, his voice low and firm. "You're my son," Margaret replied. "I always know what you're doing." Michael drew a deep breath. "You already know, don't you? About Emily, about Lily." There was a brief silence on the other end. Then Margaret exhaled, as if she had been waiting for this day for a long time. "So you know." "I know that you lied to me," Michael said, each word landing like a nail driven into the floor. "I know you let me live for 5 years without knowing I had a child." Margaret's voice sharpened. "I did it to protect you." "No," Michael replied immediately. "You did it to control me." Margaret demanded to see him that very evening. Michael did not refuse. He returned to Emily's apartment and told her everything. Emily went pale. "You don't have to do this," she said. "I don't want you to—" "No," Michael cut in. "This isn't only about you. It's about Lily, and it's about me." That evening, they stood before the grand Reed family estate, a stately old mansion in the Chicago suburbs. Emily clutched Michael's hand, the old feeling washing over her. Small, out of place, standing before the power of this family. Margaret was already waiting in the living room, her posture rigid, her gaze icy when she saw Emily. "Michael," she said, completely ignoring Emily. "What do you think you're doing?" "I'm bringing my family," Michael replied calmly but firmly. Margaret let out a cold laugh. Family? Have you lost your memory again? She is the mother of my daughter, Michael cut in, and Lily is your granddaughter. Margaret spun toward Emily, her eyes filled with disdain. You certainly know how to come back at the right moment. Emily trembled, but she lifted her chin. I didn't come back for money, she said, her voice small but steady. I came back because my daughter deserves to have her father. Margaret smiled coldly. And what do you want now? Child support? A title? Michael stepped forward, placing himself between Emily and his mother. That's enough, he said. You will not speak to her that way. Margaret stared at her son, her voice lowering into a threat. If you continue this relationship, you will lose everything. Your assets, your reputation, your career. I will cut you off. Michael did not hesitate. Then do it. Margaret froze. I've already lost 5 years with my daughter, Michael went on, his voice trembling yet resolute. I will not lose another day to your control. He took Emily's hand and turned away. Emily and Lily are my family. You can accept that, or lose me forever. The door closed behind them, leaving Margaret Reed standing motionless in the vast room. For the first time in her life, she had lost control. Outside, the rain kept falling. Emily let out a shaky breath. Michael tightened his grip on her hand. We'll be all right, he said. This time, I won't step back. The days following the confrontation with Margaret Reed passed more quietly, but they were far from easy. Michael did not return to his old house. He spent most of his time in Emily's small apartment, not as a man reclaiming the past, but as someone learning how to step into the present, carefully, consciously, one moment at a time. He began with very small things. In the mornings, he took Lily to preschool. In the afternoons, he picked her up, patiently listening to her little stories about dolls, friends, and colorful drawings. In the evenings, he read Lily bedtime stories, sometimes awkwardly mispronouncing the characters' names in the books. Lily never questioned any of it. For her, Michael's steady presence was enough. Children have an instinctive way of loving. They do not blame the past, nor demand explanations. Emily watched everything from a distance. She saw Michael learning to be a father with remarkable patience. She saw him apologize when he was late. She saw him remember Lily's vaccination schedule more clearly than she did. And most importantly, she saw him stay, not disappearing, not making empty promises, not running away when things became difficult. Late one night, after Lily had fallen asleep, Michael and Emily sat facing each other in the small kitchen. Under the warm yellow light, the room was so quiet, Emily could hear her own heartbeat. "Are you afraid?" Michael asked softly. Emily looked up. "Afraid of what?" "That I won't be able to love you the way I used to," he said honestly. "That I won't remember what we once had." Emily was silent for a long moment, then nodded. "Yes," she admitted. "I'm afraid every day." Michael lowered his gaze. "I can't promise that I'll remember," he said. "I may never remember, but I can promise you this. Every day I choose to be with you, and Lily is a choice. Not because of memory, but because my heart wants it." The words were not poetic, not dramatic, but their sincerity made Emily's throat tighten. A few weeks later, Michael suggested something Emily had never imagined. "Go back to school," he said. "Finish your nursing program." Emily shook her head instinctively. "I can't. I have to work. I have to take care of Lily." "I can take care of Lily," Michael replied, gently but firmly. "And I want to take care of you, too." For the first time in 5 years, Emily allowed herself to think about a dream she had once buried. Not because she needed Michael, but because this time he stood beside her. Not as a memory of the past, but as a man building a future with her from zero. One early summer afternoon, Michael took Emily and Lily to a park along Lake Michigan. The sky was a rare, clear blue, a gentle breeze carrying the scent of water and fresh grass. Lily ran ahead, laughing as she flew her kite, the thin string trembling in her small hands like the simple joy of childhood itself. Emily stood beside Michael, quietly watching their daughter. The moment was so peaceful that it almost frightened her, as if breathing too deeply might cause everything to vanish. "Do you remember this place?" Michael asked. Emily nodded slowly. "Yes," she said. "We used to come here a lot." Michael smiled sadly. "I don't," he said honestly, "and I hate that." Emily turned to him. "Michael?" He raised his hand gently to stop her. "I know," he said softly. "You always say that memories aren't everything, but sometimes I still feel regret. Regret that I don't remember the first time I held your hand, or the first time I told you I loved you." Emily swallowed. "But you're still here," she whispered. "That's what matters." Michael looked at her for a long moment, his gaze steady and clear. Then he took a deep breath and slowly knelt in front of her on the green grass. Emily froze. "Michael." He opened the small box in his hand. Inside lay a simple yet elegant ring, catching the afternoon sunlight. "Emily Carter," he said, his voice trembling slightly but firm. "I can't give you back the past. I can't return the memories I've lost, but I can give you the present and the future." Tears spilled down Emily's face. "I love you," Michael continued, "not for what we once had, but for what we are building now. I love the way you are as a mother, your strength, the way you never gave up even when I wasn't there." He looked up at her. "Marry me, not to go back to the past, but to create new memories together." Emily burst into tears. She nodded, not needing another second to think. "Yes," she said through sobs, "I will." In the distance, Lily ran toward them, squealing when she saw them embracing. "Is Mommy getting married?" the little girl asked innocently. Michael lifted Lily into his arms, smiling through his tears. "Yes," he said, "and Daddy isn't going anywhere anymore." Emily and Michael's wedding took place on a gentle autumn morning in a small church in the Chicago suburbs. There was nothing extravagant, nothing showy, only the people who truly loved them. Lily served as the flower girl, wearing a simple white dress, holding her mother's hand as she walked down the aisle with a radiant smile. When Michael saw his daughter standing beside Emily, his heart tightened. This was not a dream. This was the life he had nearly lost. When the priest pronounced them husband and wife, Lily clapped the loudest in the entire church. "Now we're really a family," she shouted. Michael bent down to lift his daughter into his arms, wrapping his other arm tightly around Emily. "We were always a family," he said softly. "It just took a little time to find each other." Life afterward was not always easy. Michael never regained the memories he had lost. There were days when he looked at old photographs and felt nothing. There were moments when Emily felt a quiet ache, realizing that some memories belonged only to her. But instead of letting that divide them, they chose to create new memories. Emily returned to school and completed her nursing program. On the day she graduated, Michael and Lily sat in the front row, clapping until their hands turned red. Lily shouted, "That's my mom!" Michael worked at the hospital with renewed devotion. He was not only a pediatrician, but also a father who understood the fears of children and parents more deeply than anyone. One evening, as the whole family lay on the sofa with Lily asleep between them, Emily asked softly, "Do you ever regret not remembering?" Michael looked at his wife, then at his daughter. "Sometimes," he admitted, "but if I remembered everything, maybe I wouldn't cherish the present like this." He squeezed Emily's hand. "I don't love you because of memory," he said. "I love you because every day my heart still chooses you." Emily rested her head on his shoulder, silent tears falling, no longer from pain, but from gratitude. Their love had survived death, forgetting, and time. Not through memory, but through the heart.